start. We've got a great panel here. We have, and I haven't met everybody here, but we have Samuel Burke, Business and Technology Correspondent of CNN. We have Tyson Barker. Oops, nope. We have Mihnea Costoiu, right? Mihnea Costoiu from the Politehnica University, the best polytechnic university, I've been told, in Bucharest in Romania. We have Maria-Cristina Matei, Chief Operating Officer of ING Romania. Thanks for being here. Then we have Tyson Barker, Program Director, Digital Program, Aspen Institute, Germany. And then finally, Bogdan Balaci, General Manager, Southeast Europe for Philips Lighting. So great to be with all of you. So why don't I start with you, Sam, to sort of give us just a few minutes, each of you a few minutes, about how you frame, what is the scaffolding that you think is very important in talking about technological change and how we're going to adapt or not adapt to it?
Well, I think number one, I like to be optimistic. Usually I would be 100% optimistic and say...
You're a journalist. You should thrive in darkness and cynicism.
Yes, I try not to always. And that's one of the rewarding things about covering technology at CNN is it's not always death and destruction. And for me, one of the most exciting parts of technology is I have an aunt who is deaf, and to see what technology means for handicapped people. So to see an app that people can use, it's basically like FaceTime or Skype, and when they can't see if they've dropped a necklace on the ground, for somebody who's blind, they can now just FaceTime and have a volunteer who's always waiting on the app. There's, they call you, there's another person ready, and they say, okay, do you see it? Do you see it? To your left, go down, pick it up. Or they're lost in Manhattan, and they hold up the phone, and somebody says, oh, you're at 5th Avenue. That's where they can do that. So I'm always so moved when you see that. For you and I, we just take it for granted, but technology can really mean a game changer for people who are disabled.
I just have to interview. Yesterday, I interviewed the president of GE Appliances in Atlanta, Georgia. They're in Louisville, Kentucky. And to this very key point, they have this innovation lab inside GE that allows people to go. And one of the things was somebody had a deaf, or not a deaf, but a blind parent, and they created a washer dryer and an oven that speaks, that in this case spoke in Spanish, and now it speaks in any language, so it can tell, as the dial goes around, it can basically do this. So exactly to your point.
And for my aunt, just text messaging. What that means for her that she can text message with me. I live in London now, she lives in Colorado. So usually that's what I would say. But I have to say, in the past few weeks, I've really changed how I'm thinking about technology. If you look at the type of information that CNN is breaking about Facebook and Russia and the US elections, and for the first time, any person in the world can buy an ad from any place in the world except for Iran and North Korea, and advertise to 2 billion people. And I'm very concerned that we might be the problem. I'm not so concerned that maybe AI will be smarter than we are, but we were talking about this today at lunch. I'm concerned because I realize that Russia could influence Romania, that the United States, I don't only want to focus on Russia, that the United States could have huge influence over a country, more than maybe its own countrymen would like. And I think we are just in the first few weeks of something huge. People really didn't realize until a few weeks ago, it wasn't just that people were posting fake news on Facebook and Twitter and Google, is that people were able to amplify, use a small amount of money to amplify that message and have access to almost the entire United States. If a country had tried to buy ads and put them on CNN in the past that was trying to influence the election from outside the US, it probably wouldn't have happened. So just in the past few weeks, I'm changing how I frame technology. I'm optimistic. I was saying before in a lunch we had with journalists from here in Romania, there are a lot of things that can quickly be applied from journalism to Facebook. Transparency, if Facebook just says, this is an advertisement that's being promoted by, that could really help us. But I think for the first time I really realized that a platform that has 2 billion users is ripe for all types of things, good and bad.
Great comments. Mihnea.
Change the perspective. I'm coming from university, and technical university. I prepared a presentation. It's a presentation about the university and our experience. But I give you some data about the impact of internet. It's Cisco Internet Business Solution, it's the source. This is the situation in the world and the perspective.
Right.
Can we talk about the influence of the technology, of the internet? Our colleague of the panel talk about this. This is the reality.
This is the Internet of everything.
Yes.
Yes.
World population, internet, and the devices per person. It's amazing.
So can we just point out so the audience can follow this online? The big number, if I made it to look at it, is the 6.58, the big blue number, which looks at internet-connected devices per person. But these are devices connected to each other. I mean, this is a whole ecosystem of global connectivity of
Look
systems.
here.
Yeah.
Look here. Not only the connectivity,
Right.
but the influence in the market. This is the scientific article in
So
IEEE.
show them just through the one line there, because there's so much there. But smart homes on the top in 2016. So the dark blue is smart homes, then smart buildings, then smart energy, so these are all of the new applications.
Yes. Practically in industry, this is the impact. And this is official data report by the state, the company. We work. I worked for this article with our colleague from United States, and I mention this because it's very important to understand. Can we talk? Do we have in front of us the number, the dimension,
right.
the implication, and can we talk? I return in our experience in Romania. I give you two information about. We don't have time about the university. 30,000 students. Can we talk faculties in Romania? Is this faculty is the school in the United States? 35 program in English, German, and French. And I mentioned this. We invest in Internet of Things, in special, in technology, a lot of money in last years, more in technology and human resource, more than 600 million euros in infrastructure, of course, but we invest also in human resources, and we transform the campus, the smart campus in the first smart campus in this part of the Europe, and helped by our colleague and friends and from United States, of course, U.S. Trade and Development Agency. And last but not least, very important for us, can we talk about the impact of technology in university and the impact of technology in university and of course in industry. Sorry, I'm very tired. We put together European funds, national funds, and private funds. Our students coming from many countries, and we have now labs in 20 countries. Partnered with have partnership with different institutions. And we transformed the campus in the large academic hub practically in this part of the Europe. Not only university, but of course very important research. And we have many services in our university. Very important. All this with new technology. Green, new technology, Internet of Things. It's one example. We realized the learning application 3 years ago, new learning application. And in 3 years, we have 200,000 people in 3 years, only in the learning application. And the people coming from 70 countries in 3 years, and we don't invest money in for marketing.
Right.
It's only the resources and the network inside the university developed by the professors and the students. The impact I talk about this. I'm very optimistic. Of course, the internet connection, it's very important. We have a lot of examples. I give you more examples. But very important to understand the new psychology of the people. It's most important. I give you one personal example. I talk about a big conference like this in Japan, in Kyoto. It's 3-4 panels in the same time. Me one vice prime minister from Russia, the president of GMC, and another panelist talk in same time about the impact, and we have same presentation. We talk about our children and our experience. I stay with my children in front of the windows.
After you give me short form on this story. Yeah.
I stay with my children in front of the windows, and in a weekend it's coming big truck. It's a
right.
The building. It's realized a building, big trucks. After this Monday morning, my children realized this by window because you use the iPad and know the possibility to increase the image.
Right.
And stay in the window and realize same message. The perspective. With real, the 1.5 years, my children have 1.5 years. The reality and the image. Many people talk in our university about the image, not about reality. We have big problems because we have very smart students, very good engineer, the big school in this part of the Europe. We have very good message for industry and special IT. We cut the taxes in 2003 with Mr. President. It's a minister in this period. It's our idea. And now we have very good IT sector. But the big problem is the relation in the employer relation,
right.
Because our students stay only in the PC. Don't talk. Don't talk each other. Can we talk about the impact? It's very important. Don't talk only about technological impact,
right.
But very important talk about about the.
You have way too many slides for us today, so I'm going to bring you to a close.
This is finished.
Here. Yeah, okay.
I finished.
Great. So I want to thank you. And Maria-Cristina, we've moved to, and I want to ask you because I think, Mihnea, you did a great job of giving us a kind of new ecosystem of tech everywhere. And I thought the slides you gave on really how transformation is happening through so many sectors is profound. It really raises the question in a very blunt way about what's our social contract? You're in business, Maria-Cristina. What is our social contract with those that are engaged civically, that are working, that had that message, built into their DNA long ago, that they go to school, they get educated, they get a job, they create a better life for their kids? Is that still workable in a world where all the machines can basically run each other and talk to each other, and they can keep us warm in our smart houses, but it doesn't really answer the fundamental question about where people are in this? And I'm wondering, as an employer and an innovator, what you think.
Well, first to mention that I'm an optimist also. So
Damn.
The answer is very simple. By all means, yes, they do have place, all these things.
Mm.
But I also believe it's not the same like they used to be 10 years ago. And I think it's for each of us to learn the new way in this environment. Will the human still have place? By all means, it's our word. We will define it. But you just saw two examples in the personal life, but also in business. It affects everything. The way we think about it, the way we embed it in our day-to-day work, what we expect as persons,
right.
not as employers necessarily. And I think it brings many things. It brings, for instance, a sense of impatience. Yeah? 10 years ago, something didn't work, we were not so bothered, we were not so dependent. But now, just a few minutes ago, the show cannot go on because we don't have a PowerPoint, for instance, at hand. So yes, I think it influences everything, and I think it is for the society to be very aware of all these changes. Because you spoke very well about education. Yes, we have a very literate IT community within Romania and a lot of new specialists. Is it enough? By all means, no. I think any employer in this country will tell you that it's a severe shortage of people trained in this new reality. And it's a new reality different from 2 years ago, yeah? Because the technology.
Can I just interrupt? Just a quick question, and maybe our other panelists may want to come in. I like how Sam laid out the Facebook case, because in it you have this large platform that's developed that can be used for bad things, right? So these monopoly platforms can be hijacked, right? What we saw, I'm more familiar with the U.S. case, but we see a lot of hijackings of structures today, hijackings of the Republican Party by somebody who wasn't a Republican, hijacking of election systems by folks potentially outside the United States. And so, what I'm interested in is as we move into this world that Mihnea just showed us, there aren't a lot of antibodies built into that ecosystem to look at how you work. And I'm just wondering, are we moving so fastly and quickly into this new world that we're underappreciating that by being so optimistic, we're actually doing a disservice to our future because you are not anticipating some of the downsides, some of the impacts, some of the things that Sam just said could happen, that maybe you do need to be a bit more cynical and skeptical because it could be very damaging to society. Do you think about that at all? I'm going to start with you, Maria-Cristina. Do you think about that? I just want to challenge your optimism and friendliness. It's so uncomfortable.
I think it's very fair that you should think about it, but let me reverse the question, as it's normally not polite to do, but still. Can you stop it? Do you think you can make it at a lesser pace than it is? Because my answer would be definitely no. So better, we need to grab the opportunity and know how to adjust. Does it mean that we have a responsibility? By all means, yes. And I think this is the serious discussion that you may have. You cannot have stop Facebook from having 3 billion clients soon. You cannot stop fake news just by saying we don't want them there. Yeah, any person that does coding will tell you that there is limitation on how you detect what is fake and what is not fake. But it's a responsibility for those that run those services and also for me as a consumer. Yes, I have a responsibility in this new world that is different again than it was 5 years ago.
Interesting. Thank you. Tyson, yes.
I will go ahead and be the panel's token pessimist, and I'm an American.
Just do it loudly.
Yes, exactly.
And with pride.
And I live in Germany, so it kind of gets in your bones a little bit.
Yeah.
Sam expressed the change that's happened, which is in the United States, it used to be the idea technology is inherently good. Think about Hillary Clinton's response to the Arab Spring.
Right.
Technology is coming, it's spreading democracy, that's what it does. But Sam mentioned it, technology is an enabler. It enables good behavior and it enables bad behavior. So we need to think of technology as value neutral. That's just a start. I'll add a couple more shifts that I see happening, which I think can be also value neutral. One is technology is moving from a almost exclusively information technology, data breach or data environment, to an operational technology environment or an Internet of Things environment. Basically, everything's connected to the internet. So that has obviously some implications. First of all,
Like the refrigerator.
Exactly.
You showed. Nobody has made a good argument yet about why your refrigerator really needs to be connected to the internet.
I show you in
to
2
talk to
minutes,
you.
I changed the life in Bucharest with a refrigerator.
I'm skeptical.
No, it's real. I have a short demonstration in 5 minutes because we have this capacity. Sorry.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, basically that means that every company is a technology company, and for people like me who have been having these conversations in Berlin and Brussels for 7 years, I can tell you, companies that weren't at the table talking about tech policy 5 years ago, BMW, Daimler, Ford, Bosch, they weren't there. They're there now. They're a little late, but they're there. The other thing is when we talk about cybersecurity, we're not just talking about data anymore or embarrassing leaks or disinformation. We're talking about personal safety. So that's a big change as well. The third thing I would bring up is the state is back in this space. There was a time, especially in the United States, where there was kind of a libertarianism was dominant. And now, and I have to be honest, Europe is leading the way. It's coming back. And it's coming back in, I would say, 4 areas. It's coming back in taxation. There was a big summit last week talking about how do you tax these platforms because they're making money hand over fist and they're not paying anything.
Right.
It's coming back in competition policy because they have monopolies. Data protection, cybersecurity, obviously, and regulation. Are these platforms media companies? Are they utilities? How do we regulate these? And then the fourth thing that I would mention is this political anxiety, which I think came out in the election in the United States. Donald Trump whipped up populist anxiety against trade and immigration. But there's that same anxiety in the United States against technology. And I don't think that came to expression. It's subconscious still. But if you think about things like the fact that In 29 of the 50 states in the United States, the #1 job is driving, and that could be displaced by automated driving. McKinsey says that in Germany, 62 to 77% of working hours for low-skilled labor will be automated.
I mean,
in the
just to
next
give
15
context on the
years.
driving thing, we have about 4 million lesser educated or non-degreed drivers of commercial trucks.
Exactly.
And the commercial trucking industry is one they think would be
Huge.
probably very ripe for autonomous
And what's the
driving.
demography of those truckers? Right?
Black, Hispanic, yeah, lower
Yeah.
education.
Or white males
Right.
also?
Well, also, yeah, right,
But
lesser
yes,
educated.
exactly.
I mean, it's a bunch of lesser educated people that are in that area
Right.
that you end up, when you ask that question of transformation,
Yeah.
you just don't know what you're going to do. I mean, I just don't know what we're going to do with them. I don't know if that should stop anything, but I do know that it creates a social and political challenge and an anger and frustration. And I know that a lot of my relatives, go back to my proverbial cousins who are real, they're those truck drivers. I mean, they are those people, and it's hard for them to hear, that they should just
Suck
kind of
it
sit
up.
back. Yeah, there is a.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the answer of the 90s, the Clinton answer, would be retraining, education. But this is not a panacea. These people are not going to become coders.
Right.
And then the question becomes, okay, what do we do? And frankly, I'm here ready to hear answers from the other panelists.
Bogdan?
Thank you. Listening about all this discussion about who's afraid of technology makes me remember somehow about the Terminator movies. And thinking about them, I think with all these achievements in technology, I like better the old ones, I guess. I don't know.
Say a little bit more loudly.
Yeah, so
this room, yeah.
I think there is a place for humans, and definitely because technology can do things, can implement things better than us, but we add the content. So I think I would like to speak about two main forces that are shaping technology-related forces that are shaping our lives, our businesses. One, of course, is the internet, and as you said, Friedman calls this the third globalization, after the second you were talking about, which makes basically the world flatter. So you have less barriers. So it's, as you said, it's an enabler for good things and for the bad things. But if you really think about the success in the internet era, the success is based on sharing the infrastructure. Yeah, Uber has no taxes, but internet provided the infrastructure to do the business. Of course, if we go in more, strategic infrastructures, all the strategic infrastructures like telecoms, lighting, energy grids, these are will become the main infrastructure for the new world in the Internet of Things, because they are there, and due to the technology can be shared and can be used, and we can consume using them different resources, which is pretty obvious. The second force, which I think is very important and shapes the world, is this push for circular economy, which also the technology is enabling it. And from my perspective, from business perspective, the biggest change here is that it really transforms the selling of the products in selling the products as a service. So people more and more will start to consume different assets or different goods as a service, talking about autonomous cars. Yeah, probably in the future we just pay for like an utility for the car, not actually buying the car. And this is probably the biggest force that change businesses across the industries, any business. And of course, if you go into this circular economy in offering products as service, then it's a lot of new things that appear, like, okay, what is happening with the goods after that, which in the normal economy nobody cares, you just throw it away. And then you got, the second life, the refurbishing, the recycling, and so on and so forth. So coming back to the question, who's afraid of technology? I think, of course, there are some security risks. As you said, we will have these networks as a base for all our interactions, and of course, they are becoming targets for security threats. But also, I just want to put it on the table. I think there is another threat or opportunity, depends how you look at it, at the coin, and this is in the different business models. So I think also a lot of businesses should be afraid or should take advantage of this new world, because you have a lot of new competitors, new
Right.
rules. Just to give you an example from my line of work, we had an interesting project in Croatia, in island of Burke in Croatia, and there the mayor said, I have 3,000 lighting points on the island. I don't want to buy any other. I'm fine. But I want a system which connects everything, and from a laptop I can manage everything and also do some asset management automatically, so on and so forth. And our competition, in this case, was Deutsche Telekom, not our traditional competition. So it was pretty different because it was not about the luminaires, which lighting company is doing, but it was about software. So I think this force, it's also, which is technology driven, but it's more in, let's say, in an economical world, I think also it's a very important driver and can create not necessarily risks, but also
Right.
opportunities. But,
Thank you.
Disturbance in the force. No?
Thank you. I want to go, we've got about 15 minutes for questions if we're going to stay on time, which I know everyone would like to do. I want to throw out something there, both the positive and scary sides of technology just for a moment, something I was just thinking of listening to all of you. And then also ask the question, if we're 20 years from now in this room at the Bucharest Forum, looking back, I'm wondering, are we asking the right questions? Are we anticipating some of the right currents? What do we need to begin thinking about doing? And maybe it's a little bit of optimism, maybe it's a little skepticism. If you take 3D printing, which we haven't discussed, 3D printing really fascinates me. I don't know if any of you're doing it here. 3D printing is fascinating. You can 3D print. There's a company called Local Motors that can 3D print a car, a small car, and so you can go to Fiji or to someplace where there's just no way to have car industry. But if you want to have small cars, it's easier to print them than to export them. You can print the vehicles and do that. And you can be emergency vehicles, you can print all sorts of things that come from the very modern developed world and 3D print them to that. That's a good thing. But if you look at 3D printing and how it's being used to sort of print guns and weapons at extraordinary levels all around the world, but particularly in the United States. That is the #1 use of 3D printing today, is weapons-related 3D printing. And so it gives you an idea. I spend a lot of time with cancer therapists right now, cancer research, and looking at immunotherapy and genetic design. We had Craig Venter at the Washington Ideas Forum, which we do at the Aspen Institute, and Craig has this view that all of our doctors in the world should be fired, that this notion that you look great has nothing to do with whether you're great or not, that we can look at your genetic structure, I can look at what your proclivities are, test for them, and I can, he can add 20 years to your life. The thing is, the Venter health test is a $25,000 test in San Diego, but you get so many more things out of that. The downside is The Atlantic had a cover story about 2 years ago written by a futurist, very dark thinker, talking about, skeptics, named Mark Goodman. And the title of the piece was called Hacking the President. And it was about fascinating reality, which, we fact-checked this, which is, very James Bondish, next era kind of thing, where when President Obama would travel around the world, use a cup, use a glass, use a sheet, a towel, the Secret Service would try to make sure that it collected all of those things so that his DNA could not be acquired by foreign governments. And when foreign leaders come to the United States, we actually try and acquire their DNA. It's part of the new mutual assured destruction, because you can potentially, I'm not saying you can, begin looking at how you create a pathogen that targets a single individual, say the President of the United States or the President of some country. And I think this is the era where you're looking at, that's a very dark side scenario, but nonetheless, it's one, our fact checkers are the best in the business. And it was a fascinating journey into some of the dark sides. And there are many other dark sides that people could think of. So I think it's not just in terms of our social contract impact on jobs. It's the question this world is coming at us so fast that's what I wanted. So I want to throw that little editorial comment and open up the floor to questions and comments. Yes, right over here. The man on the left, yes.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Sebastian.
Hi, Sebastian.
I work in the banking industry, and I have a question for my colleague, Mrs. Matei. I understand from what you said that technology is neither good or bad, and it depends what you make of it, and it gives you more responsibility. But my question is, can we face more responsibility? Because each new technology gives us more responsibility. And can humankind face that much responsibility? When is it enough, let's say?
Interesting
When
question.
is it too much? Thank you.
Well, again, I will just a bit revert
A little
the
louder.
question. Yes. I think you have to. Sorry, you simply have to. Yes, you have a lot of challenges with this new technology, and you are very right, the life cycles are much, much shorter year after year. Yeah, so that leaves us little space or little time to adjust to it. But there is simply no way around it. You need to face it. Do we complain? Yes, each and every day. Each and every day when you see your backlog of things to do, you say, yet again, it's not that I'm finished and now I need to start again because something else has happened. But it's simply no choice. Yes, we need to cope. And the same is true for, again, all the businesses and all of us as individual people. You cannot take a break and say, okay, wait for me to adjust.
I'm going to take this lady here in the
Explain
third
to
row.
stop.
I'll get to everybody, but
Explain
I have
to
a
stop,
pattern.
sorry,
Yeah.
for one patient or
A
doctor.
little bit louder.
And doctor, don't use the technology today for this patient. Practically, this is the life.
Yes,
Roxana Voicu-Dorobanțu from the Young Leaders Program of the Aspen Institute, Romania.
thank you.
Usually, there are voices that say that technology, in lack of critical thinking, and that's a term that I haven't heard today, and in lack of accessibility, and that's a term that I have heard today regarding the Energy Lab,
Right.
may lead to a polarization of society. In terms of income, it might have outliers
Right.
that don't have access to society, and also in terms of opinion in the same society. And we have this debate in Romania as you do in the US. So this is a question for all of you on the panel. How do you mitigate this polarization of society?
Let me throw it to Sam.
Well, I mean, I think what I hear you saying is, are people becoming stupider? Is essentially what you're saying in a way. And then I think back to Facebook and Twitter and the fake news immediately, and that some people don't even question. I mean, the fact that some people just sat and looked and said, even though I know this, I don't know anything about this organization where I'm getting the information. I don't know anything about them, but yet I'm trusting them and letting them influence how I make this decision, I would say goes to the point that you're talking about. The lack of critical thinking is being critically
But isn't that always there? I mean, I love the question, but I mean, just to jump, isn't that always there? And there's a famous Nobel laureate named Arno Penzias, was later at Lucent Technologies. Some of you may know him. And he had the very blunt statement. He says, the internet is going to make smart people smarter and dumb people dumber. And he was, really ridiculed for a long time. But to a certain degree, there's a polarization dimension in it. And I think one of the interesting things from a social impact side is whether or not there is a commons, where there are benefits there. And we in the United States, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but we just had one of the largest credit bureaus, Equifax, hacked. And so the private information of 143 million people was exposed to some nefarious players. And what is really interesting in that is that some of the comments is we need to be more aware of our digital behavior. And I'm like going, no, we don't.
Those are the people who are
No, we don't.
responsible
They're
for our
we
digital
delegated.
footprint.
Yeah, exactly, right.
But again, I think it comes back to very simple things that those of us who are hopefully thinking critically and pessimistically can do things to put information in place to help people. Look for those type of solutions. And I just have to say that the people who are most afraid of technology are the technologists. I mean, you have, I think it was
Right.
The Atlantic who did the survivalist
Yes,
article.
yes.
You have so many people in Silicon Valley because they have disrupted
Yes.
other companies. They're afraid of being disrupted, but they're also the ones who are afraid, and they're taking measures. Some people in Silicon Valley are literally stocking up on food and other articles because they're worried about what
It's a great
technology and what one of the best articles I've ever read, are afraid of what could happen in an increasingly polarized world and less predictable
Tyson,
world.
quick.
But but this polarization and the lack of critical thinking, we can delegate that. We can delegate it to credible institutions. We can delegate it to institutions which we believe in. We invest our belief into these.
But the institutions are failing.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
This is the thing. We've lost, it's the civic ignorance, which David Sauter talked about as the primary threat to our country, and the distrust in institutions, which is leaving us so vulnerable to things like, Russian disinformation.
Yes, right here, real quick. And then right to this gentleman in the second row.
I think I have a comment and a question linked to that, because I think it's a major challenge for education. I'm pretty confident that the education on the tech side will be just state of the art. Now, education, how to use it, to exact, as Sam said, criticism with situation we're facing with is really a new challenge for education as a whole, for younger generation. I just want to make a comment, the situation is very like the allegory of the cave, if you know Plato. So a few decades ago, in philosophy lessons, you tell, well, some you know the cave allegory, so you have picture on the cave, and people take it for reality. And 30 years ago, say, well, that's easy, those guys were not smart, I'm much smarter, I know what's reality, I know what's not reality. But today, the reality or fake reality is on your screen. And you cannot make the difference. So you need to be educated again to really have, be up to that challenge, I think.
Right. Mihnea, do you guys have continuing education programs?
Yes, it's also my idea. It's very important.
Bring your mic
my
up
opinion.
a little closer, because it's
Sorry.
not that, yeah.
I'm going to move that for you.
Moved it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's very important to continue to educate the people, invest in education. In my opinion, it's very important to have a policy, because if we use...
Does the Polytechnic University do that?
Yes. We use the technology for the students. It's possible also for the responsible lady to decrease the polarization.
Right.
Because we have very good market. Many years ago, we have big network in Romania. We have now very good network for internet. It's possible to use the network and the technology to put in the small village more information for the students, for the teacher, for learn practically in the same situation like in the middle of the Bucharest. We have this capacity. It's very important to have a policy, very good policy for use the technology. And I repeat, it's a cycle. It's very important. Human resources, investment, money, and return, human resources. This is the cycle.
Bogdan, just interesting, at Philips, do you guys have a very active reskilling and upskilling program with your people?
Yeah, absolutely. I think...
How many employees do you guys have?
100 here.
100 here, but
yes,
globally?
Globally, a few hundred thousands, yeah. So I think it's an important question, but I think this polarization basically existed already. I think the technology, the Facebook and this type of technologies make it more visible. But also I think that in the future, in order to thrive, we need more educated people. That's
so we're going to do a lightning round. We got a bunch of questions here and answers. Yes, sir, real quick, right here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Xiong from the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My question would be about technology and politics. So my question goes to, well, Steve, Samuel, or other panelists. Well, modern technology has been bringing people closer than ever before, and that definitely includes politicians and voters. We see President Trump sends out dozens of tweets on a single day. We see many politicians got elected on Europe and North America, not because the voters know about their policy, but the voters see them as new, young, and handsome faces. And more politicians and political parties now has a tendency towards populism and nationalism. So many would argue that politics is more about a show with the support of modern technology rather than serious business. So my question would be, how do you see technology is changing politics? Thank you.
But I think it's really about authentic communication. You could say it's about show, but at the end of the day, whether you like Donald Trump or not, and I think I've said this 3 times here now, he figured out a way to communicate in a way that was perceived as being authentic. You may say he's changed his position 3 times in one day, which has happened, But he's figured out a way to quickly, in a condensed format, talk to people in the language that they understand, albeit 140 characters. It may not be, intellectually stimulating, but it's efficient, and he did it in a way that Hillary Clinton did not.
I would just simply say in response, I've had the privilege of interacting with a big majority of House members and senators, both parties, some very closely. And what we see on TV and the news and whatnot about what you would consider to be populism, it is a feature of the American political system right now that I don't think will be sustained, where a small number of people that are somewhat radical in their views have become defining for the entire institution. The fact is that the majority of Republicans and the majority of Democrats who are certainly in disarray but trying to find a way for the future are people listening. They are not populists. They are not engaged in shows. They are engaged in serious public policy work. They're frustrated by the knot that the system is in, and there's no doubt that the system is paralyzed. But I think it would be a mistake to look at Donald Trump's tweets or the Freedom Caucus as defining of the entire institution and the entire trend. Because I think one of the interesting things, and it came as a result, ironically, of Donald Trump's willingness to work with Nancy Pelosi, I am telling you, Nancy, do not, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in a deal. I won't go into the complexities of this here, but the fact that he was willing to leave behind his own party and really kind of shaft, if you will, the Freedom Caucus, demonstrated something we haven't seen in politics in a while, which is a willingness to kind of go across the aisle and work on that. And so I think many of us who've been watching this system for a long time need to go back and ask the kinds of questions you've asked. What's defining, what's real, what's not? But I think it would also be a mistake if to overcharacterize the US system as being defined by the theatrics of President Trump in the way he's doing that. Although I would say he has probably permanently changed the system. You're not going to get what I would call one of my favorite presidents of this last era, which the most underappreciated was President George H.W. Bush. He was looked at as a loser. You're right. He was.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, but he's like kind of a fuddy-duddy guy, a man of letters. He would write things down. That kind of guy who we used to say was a loser before, people love him now. And they look and they pine for him and lament that kind of character is around. I think
even Democrats do.
Yeah, where you're correct is that kind of character probably can't easily come in. So that's where the Donald Trumps and others have changed it, but it's more in the apparatus of it. And I think that there are responses to populism that can be communicated just as well through these new technologies. But we can talk about it offline. I'd love to talk to you about what's happening in China. Yes, sir.
Hello, thank you for the very interesting debate. I'm Raul Pop, working with EY here in Romania. And I would challenge even the title of this debate, Who's Afraid of Technology? I think to the same extent that everybody's excited about technology, everybody's afraid of technology. Because as Sam went through the revelation...
You'd be a great panelist.
Well,
that's a perfect answer.
As Sam went through through this whole roller coaster of emotions regarding technology, I think we all do as we go along and we figure out other implications that we haven't foreseen. So I think the right answer from now on would be, okay, let's start with the half that everybody's afraid of that technology and figure out what kind of responses can we get out of that and how we are able to generate the responses that we need. Because at this point in time, as Cristina was saying, technology is coming, we have it, it's growing. So.
Yeah, Maria-Cristina is probably right, but I mean, I'd love to hear from the panel on this, but my quick reaction is, you're an EY guy, you're a strategist, you get all this, you're like a brain, right? You get all this, you're like Wizard of Oz, you get all this stuff, and you think you can be earnest and smart and just do it. The truth is, and go back to the political question is, most systems respond reactively. I'm just interested in that. When you look at these problems, how many problems are out there, Tyson or Bogdan and others, where you sort of see, wow, we got a train wreck coming because we're getting too much technology and we're displacing too many. How many of us see that? And you kind of wait. The politics isn't there until you have a real problem or disaster. Tell me if I'm wrong. As Rachel Maddow would say, was a TV night news star in my network, I'm an MSNBC guy. Tell me where I'm wrong. Talk me down.
Politics is not prevention-oriented.
Yes.
It's obviously reaction-oriented.
This is the difference between EY and us. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, if you, yeah, exactly.
Maria-Cristina? But see, you are in business. You can anticipate problems and plan for them,
Yes,
right?
and that is what I was about to say. I think in business you have to be preventive in the sense that you have to understand what is it coming and prepare for it, because that is not a simple, if not technologically, but the mind shift that the company needs to do in order to take benefit of all the opportunities and the responsibilities that it entails. It's not simple, I can tell you, from the everyday business.
Just as we wrap this up, Mihnea, tell me, I mean, you have so many great slides, everything. What do you think your biggest blind spot at Polytechnic University? I mean, I'm most interested in what you missed, what you thought. What is the thing you're not thinking about that's not there that you worry about?
Oh.
The known unknown.
Yes.
Yes, this is the response. For us, it's the big challenge in the next period to understand, explain in the society the importance of the engineering, because we have a lot of technology, and we don't use very good this technology for Romanian society. It's very important for talk at all the level of society, because in Romania we invest a lot of money not in technology, in engineering, in mathematics, physics, in medicine. We invest a lot of money in humanistic area, and this for us, for Romanian society, and for Europe, this is the big challenge.
Sounds like you'd be a great technology ambassador, by the way. Bogdan, quick final thoughts?
My message is we have big problem, because in future, if we don't understand the competition with China, with Asia, transform the Europe in the biggest museum in the world. Beautiful museum, but the biggest. But museum.
It's going to be quite beautiful. Yes, Bogdan?
I agree. I think this is pretty specific for our country, but I think, yes, the balance, it's a little bit, let's say, unbalanced towards the technology learning in young people. And I think it's changing now. It's changing now, but for a long period of time, it was like you said. And I think it's very important for us to invest in here, because in the end, I think what will give us purpose against the machines it will be the education.
So Sam, every great Atlantic article, every great CNN segment has a kicker at the end. So I'm going to ask you to give us the kicker for this topic in our program here, the last word.
The only thing I would say, since people are optimistic and pessimistic, if there's one thing that I've concluded covering lots of tech and hack, is have a backup plan. I've now been to Heathrow 3 times because computers run the airline ticketing machines, humans don't, and there's no backup plan. If all of us would just have a backup plan, whether it's Delta Airlines or autonomous cars, if there's just a backup plan, it could smooth over a lot of potential problems and a lot of potential fears. Just like people talk about voting. Do digital voting, but let's have a paper trail. We could all use a paper trail just in case.
That is a totally cool CNN, typical CNN kicker. Very good, polished CNN kicker. I'm sure I'm going to butcher into some names, and I apologize. So please give a round of applause to Samuel Burke of CNN, Mihnea Costoiu of Politehnica University here in Bucharest, Maria-Cristina Matei of ING Romania, Tyson Barger of Aspen Institute, Germany, and Bogdan Balaci of Philips Lighting. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you. Thank you.